We're going to carry on with the calculator project. And the next step is setting up the add, subtract, multiply, and divide buttons. So let's go and take a quick look at our code here. Wrong window. Here we go. And if we look at what we've done so far is we've set up the buttons and we've passed to those buttons some arguments, which are the numbers. And so it's a little confusing on why we use lambda. And just to remind you why we use lambda, lambda is like a one-liner function that just does something. And so we can say lambda, let's do button clicked and pass it a 0. Now we don't just have to have one argument. We could have multiple arguments. If I wanted to pass it other arguments, I could pass it, for example, answer or other things. I don't need to, of course. One is all I needed. But you can pass, I wanted to let you know that you can pass multiple things there. Okay, so the next thing is how do we make the buttons for add, deduct, multiply, and divide? So what we're going to do here is let's take a look. I've already put some code in here. And the button for addition is right here. So again, we're going to call on lambda, and I'm going to make a new function called operation, or I thought I would call it operation clicked because I'm clicking on an operator, either add, subtract, multiply, or divide. So I'm going to make a function in just a second. I knew what I'd call it, operation clicked. And what I'm going to pass to it is this global variable called addition. And in fact, it was a constant. You'll notice it's all caps, and typically constants are all caps. So at the very top, remember, I defined that variable right here and gave it a value of 4. So I'm going to, if I click on addition, it's going to receive the variable addition, which has a value of 4. So what am I going to type here? Well, let's go back, and I'm going to define my function, and I'm going to call it operation clicked, and I'm going to pass to it an operator. So I'll type in operator. So operation clicked is what I said lambda was going to do if I press the add button, and then the operator passed to it was addition, which is a value of 4. Great. So what am I going to do? Well, I want to use some variables that I'm going to modify. So I need to use this keyword global, and this makes a global variable. Typically, when you get more advanced in programming, you want to try to avoid using global variables. But to keep this program as simple as possible in my thinking process and where you're at this point in learning, let's just cheat, I'll call it, and use a global variable. So when I use a global variable, the variable I'm going to use is called first number. Oops. And you'll notice first number was right up here. It's going to be that same variable. And what happens in a function, and a lot of people maybe didn't catch this when I talked about functions, is when I pass it an argument like button value, whatever that variable is going to be used in here, and we can take on that value. But if I give it nothing, if I go to use something that's not global, it's going to be nothing. And when this ends, when the function ends, things are, again, nothing. So if I made a variable inside of a function, and I won't do that, I'll say x equals 4, for example, when this function ends, anywhere else in the program, if I say print x, it's going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. And so what we tend to do is we will either pass variables, or we can use this global keyword, and this variable can be accessed anywhere. So for example, up here, if I said in this button clicked, I said x equals 4, and on the line above it, I said global x, x now is global, and it can be used anywhere in the program. So there can be some danger to that. You can accidentally change variables you didn't know, and when your code gets to be 3,000 or 5,000 lines of code, you can't you certainly can't remember all your variables. And that's why we tend not to use global variables, because you can accidentally create some, accidentally use other variables, and that can create some catastrophic problems. Okay, so I'm going to use first number is going to be set. So when I click on the plus button, what things do I want to do? Well, I want to see what text display is. So I'm going to go text display dot get, and that's going to get whatever is in the text box. But what I want to do is, before I store it as first number, you'd think I would say something like first number equals whatever is in the text display, and you might say, great. Text display is a string, so I know I'm going to turn that into an integer. The only thing is, there could be a decimal in the display. Oh, so what I need to do is, before I say that my global variable first number is get what's in the text and turn it into a number, I'm going to say if the float, so I'm going to turn it into a float first of text because it's a string, and I'm going to say text display dot get. So I'm going to get the string text display, and I'm going to float it so it can be a decimal or no decimal. And if there's no dot in it, then I won't do anything. And I'm going to say if it is an integer, and this is a built-in thing in Python, we can go dot is integer. That means, is it an integer, yes or no? And if that's true, the number, even though it's a float, does that number have a decimal? I can say first number equals the int. Now, if that's not, and another way I could have done this for a decimal is I could also have used the find. I could say first number dot find a dot. And if there's a dot in it, I could turn it into a integer. So I could say it's an integer. So what again I'm going to do is I'm going to assign to this global variable a string. So that's whatever's in the display text box. And then I'm going to turn it into an integer because I know it is an integer. If it's not an integer, I'm just simply going to put an else. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say my global variable first number, and it's going to be a float. So there you go. So I'm going to turn it back into a float, and that's pretty well all I've done. Now, the other thing, and one of the big things I need to do is determine what the operation is. So I'm going to make my global variable here operation, and you'll see here is that global variable operation that we initialized in the beginning of the program. And I'm going to take that global variable called operation, and what I want to do is I'm going to say the operation equals whatever was passed to me as the operator right here. So when I clicked on the add button, add addition was passed, a value of 4. And so addition was passed, and so operation is going to equal addition, which is 4. And why do I want to do that? Well, in my equals button, and I'm not there yet, when I calculate the answer, I'm going to have a statement like this. I'm going to say something like, if operation equals addition, then the answer equals first number plus second number. Okay, so that's pretty well everything I need to do. By the way, sometimes when I'm building my program, and this is just for debugging purposes, just to see if it's working the way I think it is, I'm going to pass and print the I'm going to print the operation. I want to see if it's, when I press add, I want to see if it should display 4. So I'm going to display that in print, so I can, when I run the program, I can just see that it's working. So let me just run it, and here's my calculator. So 54, or, oh, I did 2 for everything. Oops, I need to fix that. But I'm going to press addition. And what did, oh, I didn't, what did I do wrong here? I need to clear the text. I didn't actually clear the text as well. So here's all this. And one of the things I also want to do is in here, I want to take my text display. Oh, and I see the problem as well, I think. I want to erase it. And in fact, I'll just copy it from this other function. So I'm going to take the text display and I'm going to erase everything. And then I'm going to do the operation. So let me just run it and see what I plus. Oh, text display. Whoops, sloppy keyboarding there. So let me just, it's txt display, text display. So let me run it one more time. And here we go. So I type in 22 plus, and notice that it's cleared. And if I look at the output screen, you're also going to notice that what we see here, I got to scroll down to the output screen, is we see when I pressed add, a 4 happened. So when I pressed the addition button, it cleared the text box and it stored in the global variable a value of 4 for the operator. So last thing I need to do here, I don't need to print, so I'm just going to erase that, is I want to work on some more buttons. And some of the other buttons I want to work on is the clear and the clear all button. So let me just run this one more time and show you what those buttons are. So you'll notice I've got a button for CE, which is clear all, and a button for C. And the way they should work is when I press 2, if I press C, the display should simply be erased. Super easy to do. I don't even need to lambda this function. I can just copy this line here, and I'm going to put it right in here, and I'll call that clear. So here's a function called clear, and it's just simply going to clear the display. So now that I've created that function, let's go to the clear button. And my clear button here, I'm going to say not button clicked, I'm going to say command equals clear. Great. The clear all button, which I call CE, I'm going to say let's pass to it clear all. And again, it's a function that I don't need to lambda because it's going to be very similar to clear, except the only difference, I'll copy that and it's going to be clear all. I'll put it up here. So this is clear all. What clear all is going to do, it's going to clear the display, but all these global variables here, I want to use those again, and I want to turn the first number into 0, the second number into 0, the operation is 0, the final answer. It's going to clear everything. Just like we initialized what the operation is, what the first number is, and second number in the beginning of the program, I'm going to do that. Now remember, they're global variables. So I need to use the keyword global, and I'm going to just write first underscore number, and I could do this on 4 separate lines. Or in Python, another way you can do that is you can type something in and put a comma, and it'll do the next one as well. So I could also do something like that. So both ways would work. So now I've got a clear and a clear all button working, and we're just about finished making our calculator. The last thing we're going to need to do is work on the equals button. And so what equals button is going to do is to display the answer. So I'm going to need to make a function to display the answer. So we've got clear operation clicked, button clicked and clear. The last thing I want to do is make a function for displaying the answer. And I forgot the colon there. And so what do we need to do for that one? So let's pull up the project and just take a look at what the project's talking about. So we've set up those buttons, the clear buttons, the equals button. So here's what you're going to need to do. We're going to store the value in a text box into a global variable called second input. Aha! We already know how to do that. Very similar to what we did with the operation. We need to clear the text box. Aha! Just showed you how to do that as well. We're going to write code to calculate by using some if statements. So if the operation being done is addition, we're going to take the first number and add the second number to it. So let's go and see if we can do those things in our project. So I'm going to copy some of this. I'm going to say the global variable just like we have up here called second number. So I want all these. So I'm going to global all these, and I'm going to use all those in my answer. So I'll just copy and paste them. So I've got first number, second number, operation, and so forth. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to say that the second number is equal to whatever was in the text display, just like we previously did when we first got it. So it equals the text display.get, and again, what I can do is I can say if it's float. So I could do, actually, I'm going to copy from here. So what I can do here is I can say that if the text display is an integer, then the second number is going to be an integer. Otherwise, the second number is going to be a float. Then I'm going to clear the display. So that was step 1 and step 2. And then step 3, what we need to do in the answer is I need to see what the operation is. And so I'm going to say if operation is equal to addition. So that means addition is selected, and if that's the case, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say final answer is equal to the first number plus the second number. Now, there's other operators, so I'm going to use the elif statement, and I'm going to say, well, elif operation is equal to, let's say, multiplication. And then what multiplication is going to be is just like what I put here. The multiplication would be the final answer equals the first number plus the second number, and you can do the rest of them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll keep using the if and elif statements. Don't forget to add a colon here. To do those calculations. And then finally, I want to put it in the display. And so I'm going to insert in the display, now that I've cleared it in the beginning, right? We cleared it right here. Now that it's cleared, what we're going to do is we're going to put the final answer into the display. Okay? So that should work, something like that. Of course, you're going to have to put more operations in and test it out and see if you can get the program to work. That's one of the last steps. And then the final thing